I'm Graham Lassard, and this is NMC Rough Cuts, presented by Bell. Over 5 episodes, we'll feature a handful of Canadian artists, each producing an original song at Studio Bell in Calgary. I'll spend the day with them in the studio. We'll hear the story behind the song and find out what motivates them as artists. New music coming to life with NMC Rough Cuts. So Celeigh, we've had a long day recording one of your songs in the studio, and there's a little bit of a story behind how this came to be. Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, this came to be because in 2017 I recorded an album called Everything and Nothing at All. And very proud of the album. It served me in so many ways. It was an album that got me the 2018 Western Canadian Music Award for Indigenous Artist of the Year. It got me a bunch of Edmonton Music Awards. It really, it opened a lot of doors for me, got me into Radioland, and it was great. It was a great tool. But one of the songs on the album I felt didn't really get the treatment that it needed and deserved. It needed more time, it needed more love. So I wanted to give it a second chance. So the idea was to come here with a new producer, with different musicians, and with a whole different arrangement, and re-record the song and try to give it the second chance that I think that will maybe take it to a different place.
Well, you don't often get the chance for a second chance at too many things. Yeah. Pretty special to bring a song back to the studio and put some of those ideas into play.
Yeah, and it just felt really important to me because I've said I'm not a very prolific writer, so I really have to hang on to the ones that I do write. And I just love the song so much, and the song really means a lot to me. Like, I wrote the song when I was deeply in love, and there is embedded into this song is a real, a true feeling of love and then a growth into self-love. And so the song means so much to me that I just couldn't let it go, and I want to see if it can fly further.
In fact, the song's about not letting go, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is. And it's interesting because the song was written during a relationship that I actually have since let go of. Mm. But it was kind of like that love, that relationship that I still have affection towards. That relationship actually led me to healing and a stronger sense of self-worth and a sense of worthiness of love that I hadn't felt before. So that's kind of the thing now that I'm holding on to. It's more about my love for myself.
So the song, the lyrics, the music, some of these things have changed. I guess the lyrics haven't really changed. Can you talk a little bit about what you wanted to do differently and why it was so important? Because you're talking, I think, about performance and production and arrangement. It's not really the content or the core of the song, but it's almost the framing of the song. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I mean, when we recorded it in 2017, we didn't do any pre-production of it. It was something that I had written. I've have only recently started doing co-writing. We didn't do any work with the arrangement of it. It was kind of just put on the table. This is this thing that I wrote. And myself, I play instruments basically just to provide myself chords to write a song with. So when I wrote it, it was just this is all I got. And that's kind of how we went into the studio. And then the production just kind of reflects us not putting a lot into that arrangement and the recording. So the song itself has stayed pretty much the same, but we've done work with arrangement and with the chords and just kind of giving it some shape. It kind of was just a wall of sound before, but now it has so much more shape to it.
Production is such an interesting word, isn't it? Because it means so many different things to different people. Maybe for anyone who isn't, neck deep in this stuff, tell us a little bit about what production means for you and why it was so crucial to this special song.
Well, yeah, so I have never really worked with a producer that has I've clicked with as well as I do with James Bunton. So for me, it was me showing him this song and telling him what I wanted. And then his ability to understand me and what it is I'm looking for, while I am like a completely uneducated musician. So I'm self taught in pretty much everything I do. At like this year is the year that I finally started taking vocal lessons for the ever. So he's able to translate the things that I want back to me and show me what it is that I'm trying to say. And so for me, production is definitely working with a producer, but then it's digging in deeper to things like working with an engineer, having somebody else mastering and mixing. I think that we had kind of somebody who was doing all of the things. And it's really interesting for me to learn how, engineering is so different from mixing, and mixing is so different from mastering. Producing is so different from all of those things, because I kind of came into this world sort of navigating by myself on my own. So it's kind of just, I'm still learning what production is, and it's kind of, revealing itself to me slowly through these kinds of processes and working in studios with folks like you.
Well, and a whole team, right? Like you've just described a whole series of processes, a lot of people involved, a big team, and in a way, it's sort of ironic that you're going through this process and learning this now when it's harder than ever to get teams together, right? And so working today with James, who you mentioned, James is in Toronto. And it's fun. There's a few levels of isolation going on today because James is in Toronto. You're in a totally dark vocal booth here. And everybody else is, at least 2 meters apart wearing masks. So it's teamwork, everybody alone together kind of.
Yeah, and it's wild how well everything worked with all of these barriers, physical and like emotional. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I felt today like all those barriers went away pretty fast, and it just sort of felt like, you hate the word normal, feels really loaded. But it felt kind of normal, kind of almost normal.
I mean, I feel like we've definitely, cities like Edmonton and Calgary have implemented bylaws for folks to be wearing masks all the time. So I think that we're quite used to wearing masks and maintaining the proper physical distances. And so for a lot of us, that's kind of second nature at this point now, because we're like 6-7 months into this. Yeah. So now we are kind of used to that. And that's not even so much a barrier to be working with people. And even we've been doing so many Zoom meetings, and people are FaceTiming as opposed to meeting in person. So working with James via session wire remotely, him in Toronto, us in Calgary, I mean, it wasn't the same, but it certainly served its purpose and worked well, and we were able to communicate.
It was a really nice surprise how quickly and smoothly it all came together on that end. It's you mentioned that you have started taking vocal lessons this year. That's amazing to hear for someone who steps into the vocal booth and just shreds. So obviously, not having had vocal lessons before, it really hasn't slowed you down in your career or your craft, but it sounds like it might be giving you some new ideas too.
Yeah, I think it's been really important for me, because, well, first of all, though I have a lot of varied influences vocally, I did spend a lot of time singing along with Janis Joplin, which is a little bit hard on the voice, So I think it was in 2015 I developed vocal nodules. So I had to stop singing for 8 months, which not only put me into like massive credit card debt because I was living off of playing music at that point. It kind of made me realize that I needed to start focusing on technique. But I'm someone who's kind of lived in survival mode for a lot of my life. So once that happened, I took a break from singing, and then that's when I started looking for different ways to make money within the music industry. So I started running open stages. I created a preschool music class that I taught to different Indigenous classes in Edmonton, and I found different ways to make money to relieve the pressure of playing music so that I didn't have to sing in pubs for 3 hours at a time anymore, and I could focus on my original music. And then that kind of slowly that blossomed into me having more success and creating that album in 2017 that was kind of the debut album that launched me into whatever I'm doing right now. But yeah, so it's been an interesting journey in that sense. But now, after kind of getting out of all of that and realizing that what I really want is stamina, proper technique, strength. I want to feel bulletproof, and I'm kind of a perfectionist too. So I want to approach everything with like the most possible strength and ability behind it.
A lot of people might not realize how physical singing is.
Yep.
It's pretty different from most other instruments. I guess maybe you could say that drums might compare in some ways, but what do you think has been the biggest change to your vocal approach since you've started lessons?
I think it's interesting because like taking vocal lessons has kind of been like therapy because your body is your instrument. When I'm stressed, it goes to my throat. You know, when I'm tired, I feel it in my throat. Everything just goes to my voice for some reason. It's so fun. But it's like, it's created this new sense of self-awareness of like, okay, my back's really tight. That's going to make my neck tight. And then everything here is tight. So I need to take a look at what's going on in my body. So it's really given me a whole new awareness of like taking care of my instrument and how things affect me. And that in itself has just like made me kind of step back a little bit more and approach how I sing a little bit more objectively. And it's also really taught me things like I've noticed that this is like a new revelation that I've had, that like I have always been somebody, because I'm a perfectionist, I'm like, I always feel like I have to really perform all the time. And if I'm not the best and I'm not always performing super hard, then like people aren't going to like it and it's not going to be good enough. So there's like a whole self-worth thing there. And it's like, well, if I'm not the best, who's going to like me? But what I'm learning is that no, you have your character and you can be yourself, and it doesn't have to be, you know, like screaming at the top of your lungs, because that's what makes people in the bars like, you know, clap, and they're like, yeah, she's so awesome, look at her wailing. It's like, yeah, then you lose your voice after that, and it's not, you know, there's no stamina in that. So it's really been it's been self-awareness, it's been self-worth, and it's been like appreciating who I am for what I do.
That's amazing. So like not only is it physical training, but also a lot of like you said, self-discovery, right? I mean, that's been my experience. I've been helping people make records for 15 years, and I understand a lot more now about why we're all compelled to keep doing this, because there's always more layers to peel back, right? We're learning so much every time we go into a new environment, whether it's vocal lessons or into a new studio to start, you know, a new piece, or in this case, an old piece over again. What did you think about today? I mean, there was at least a few new things that we all did together today.
I mean, yeah, I thought today was really great. And though it's like, it's very difficult for me to get comfortable in like new scenarios, because I'm just like a creature of habit and I have these methods. It's so important for me to like push myself and to take risks and to stretch out a little bit further than what is comfortable for me. And that was kind of like this experience. I'm in a new space. I mean, I've been in this space once before, but I wasn't recording vocals or anything. I just happened to be here. Yeah. And yeah, so it's new space. It's all new people that we're working with. And I mean, it was so comfortable. It was so easy. Everybody's so sweet here, so sweet. And it was just, yeah, it was really great. And this venue, this studio is a great, it creates like a safe environment to be vulnerable. Like, especially like in the studio that, or in the room that I was in, I wanted the lights turned off and I needed the camera turned off for a little bit, which I know was like a pain in the butt, and it's going to lead to some extra work for everybody. But what it was that just like, I needed to feel as calm as possible, and everybody accommodated it, Chad accommodated it, and it made it so much easier for me to just kind of get into my space and my zone. And I mean, yeah, everybody's just been so great and so accommodating. So
I'm really glad to hear that you settled in quickly. I think that I was actually talking about this with somebody the other day about taking risks in the studio, and about how it still feels scary, but at the end it's a safe place to take risks usually, because you don't release something until it's ready, right? So you can lay it out there and you can leave a lot on the cutting room floor. There's a phrase you don't hear a lot anymore. I always liked it because I think it's really descriptive of what happens in a recording studio, and the term is recording artists. You used to hear people talk about recording artists, and I like that as a differentiation from musicians, because of course you're a musician, but it's a little different. I mean, there's overlap, but if you think about being an actor on stage, or acting in front of a movie camera, it's really a lot different craft, isn't it? And I can imagine that
so
performing,
different.
yeah.
So different. Like, I've been singing live on stage since I was 4 years old. I'm so comfortable on stage. It's like the easiest thing in the world for me to do. Engaging with like a group of 20 to thousands of people, no problem. But I step into a vocal booth and like my whole body is so tense and I get so stressed because I'm like, it's so raw, it's so bare. Everybody's listening to the thing that you're doing. You can't like lean on the live energy to
Right.
cover up all of your mistakes. And people are like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It sounds great. People love live performances. That's easy. Recording artist, completely different ball game. And like, I have so much respect for people who can step into a booth and are just confident. And I've only recorded 2 albums, so I still need more time to get into that space. But I can't wait to have that kind of confidence and be a recording artist as well as a musician.
I mean, so my take on that is that having done records with people that have lots of experience, and having done records with people that have a little, or people that have like a fair amount, which you do definitely after a couple of records, you've got quite a bit of experience. I haven't met too many people that feel differently from you in terms of how exposed they are, especially in front of a vocal mic. And I can say I've always felt really privileged to be on the other end of that mic and be able to hear people try things out. And it's like a glimpse into such a special place for, what you do. I get just a little peek inside it, and it's amazing. But it also feels like, it's really rare, and really, really different from being at a show. Too.
Yeah, and also that reminds me of how important it is to kind of to feel safe with the person that is behind the board or on the other side of the glass, or to trust them and to be okay with being vulnerable. And that's why it was so great working with you, because you really did make that very easy. And I've certainly worked with people who are aggressive or a little less generous in their softness or kindness, so that makes all the difference in the world. It really just allows somebody to relax and get into a space that lets them be a little bit more, like I said, vulnerable. Yeah.
The other kind of isolation that I didn't mention is that you're in a booth by yourself and your band is playing a floor below. What's it like trying to connect with the energy of like a powerful unit like a band when you're hearing through headphones?
Well, and I think the thing is that I've done a lot of kind of post band tracking.
Right.
So I've done some beds before, but then I usually end up going back in and doing vocals afterwards. And this time, as well as any time before I've ever recorded, that is probably one of the biggest hurdles for me, is like getting that live energy and trying to maintain it, because it's really easy to just kind of like, feel the darkness around you and just sing along with the music that you're hearing. And that's something that I'm going to think about for future sessions. How am I going to get into that like energetic live space? Could you have any tips?
Well, I was just going to ask you for your tips, because I think, there's probably a bunch of people out there that are thinking about making their first record, and just, there's so much to think about, isn't there? Especially now when artists have so much of their career in their own hands, and eventually work up to getting a team around them. But for someone that's, preparing to make their first record as, an original songwriter, what do you tell them?
Well, I mean, I do know that I use the energy of anybody that I know is watching me. So I knew that you were like paying attention to what was going on, or not watching me necessarily, but listening. And I knew that there were other people in the room as well. And I still kind of think of it as a performance.
Yeah.
And I just try to think of it being like an opportunity to have a really intentional performance and to use as much character as possible. Things that would probably slide when you're doing a live performance, but when you're in front of the mic, like you can really think about every line as you're singing it and really feel it. And that is kind of what I think burns me out after I do about 5 takes, because I'm like trying to feel every line that I'm singing. Because if I'm like emotionally attached to it, then I'm singing it to, the max of what I can do. So that's kind of what I do, is I tap into other people's energy, even if it's just a few people, and then also like just be hyper aware of what I'm singing and what I'm saying.
So it's, you're trying to find ways to stay as emotionally involved with the lyric as you need to be for a genuine performance. Is that what you're saying? Do you ever find that you're so involved with the emotion in a lyric that it makes it difficult to perform?
Yeah, I've cried a lot on stage. Yeah, because I'm the type of person, like all of my songs they're just my stories. They're my life basically. And it's just, I'm not really that scared to be emotional in front of people. So I have songs that I've written about my son that I tear up even when I'm talking about it. I get choked up, so there's a deep emotional connection to everything that I write. And yeah, it's definitely caused, imperfections or cracks in my voice, or even like moments of having to take a couple of seconds to myself and let the boys play for a minute.
Right.
But I think that that's something that people can really feel. And aside from maybe a few people thinking that I'm totally emotionally unstable, other people in the audience actually enjoy it. And it gives people that sense of like that I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And so they feel it along with me.
I bet that, I mean, I think people are craving that connection, especially now, but live music's always been a place to go for, the kind of connection that you don't have in your day-to-day life, right? To be part of people's emotional lives. Yeah,
and I guess the goal would be to be able to translate that just as well in the vocal booth. I think about like Sia and the song Chandelier, and just like the vocals that she sings in that song, like I cry just listening to her sing it, because I know that she's feeling it, because this is a story about her life, and I know that, and it's a story that a lot of people connect to, anybody who's dealt with addiction. So that is something that I want to be able to do so well.
So you've talked about Janis Joplin, you've talked about Sia. Are you thinking about other singers when you're performing, or do you just let go and something comes out?
I just let go.
Yeah.
But it does come from like years and years of listening to also I listen to a lot of 70s rock. It turns out I didn't realize it, but it turns out I do. But like I grew up listening to an AM radio station that we only got like at night outside of Grand Prairie. So this is in like northern Alberta, and it was like hits of the 50s and 60s.
Oh yeah.
So I grew up listening to a lot of like early Beatles and like Motown and soul. So I have all these influences that have kind of shaped my voice. And there are times when I hear myself singing in different voices, which is interesting. And I'm trying to like make them all one.
Oh wow.
But it's pretty rare that I'm channeling anybody else while I'm singing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, part of that self-discovery that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, and like the one thing that I guess I've always felt like singing is like the one thing that I know that I'm good at. So when I do sing, I at least feel confident in that. And I try to be most authentically myself as possible whenever I'm singing.
You mentioned listening to a lot of classic rock, AM radio. When do you think you started to hear the production of records as opposed to just, a kind of a slab of sound coming out of the speaker?
I think the first time that I really understood that you could do so much more with music than just like guitar, bass, drums was when I started getting into Fiona Apple.
Ooh,
I think it was her
yeah.
first album title that like I was listening to it and was like, what are these sounds? This is incredible. There's just the instrumentation is so interesting. It's her the way that she sings is so unique, the way that she presents lyrics and even just and her writing is so it's in no way like any sort of pop standard ever. It's poetry basically. Right. And it was probably that album that I really, really noticed. Are you familiar with the album?
I know the album well, yeah. And I mean, the production on that album feels like poetry, like it perfectly complements the lyrics and the vocals, right? Mm-hmm. It's amazing when you have a piece of work that feels like all the elements are working together like that. I often think of production kind of like the cinematography in a film. When the film looks like what it's about, that's success. And like when the record sounds like what it's about, that's success, which is, I totally get that with that Fiona Apple record. Mm-hmm. What did you and James talk about with the track that we were working on today to try and get the production to support the story?
I think it was I had written something that was almost the entire song was just 4 chords except for the bridge. So it was really about changing some of the chords. We added a pre-chorus. It didn't have a pre-chorus before. Mm-hmm. We changed the chords in the solo section as well. We significantly changed the arrangement because it's kind of has a Motown-y feel to it. Mm-hmm. I really love the way Paul plays bass. He's so funky, and I'm like a big fan of like Wolfpack and Theo Katzman, and in a way it was kind of like I wanted like a modern-y sort of Motown that's funky, but also is what I do, and that's kind of what I said to James. Yeah. And then I sent him a demo of myself just playing the song on piano, and then he chopped that all up and sent it back to me with the treatment that is basically what we're doing right now. And yeah, it was just like me telling him what I wanted and him kind of sending it back to me, but it was really just it was really about shaping it in a way that also we did pull some lyrics out of it too, but just made it a little bit more concise and made everything, because it had different moods to it now and it moves differently. It makes everything have more impact. The verse has more impact now because it's in a different mood than the chorus, for example. So that's kind of what we did there.
So you're talking to James, who's producing the recording, but you said that he's helping you, I think you used the word translate, helping you translate your ideas in the studio. What's that process like? What's the input that you give, and how's that reflected in the output that James gives back or that you hear come through the speakers?
Honestly, it's kind of like hours of conversation where we talk about me and who I am, and he like asks me questions, and he gets to know what's going on. He sends me emails that say things like, how are you doing, what's going on in your life right now. I just feel like he spent a lot of time getting to know who I am, getting to know how I speak and my vocabulary, and I think it's given him a really deep understanding of, you know, how I articulate the things that I want. I think he even watches my friggin' body language to see how, I just think he's a really perceptive person. And I think he just really digs into getting to know the people that he works with. And, you know, for me, it's just, we have a reference playlist where we each kind of show each other songs that give an idea of what it is that we're looking at. And yeah, it's just like, it's conversation, it's looking at references, and it's just kind of collaborating in that way, and just some really, you know, deep analyzation of me.
A lot of what you've talked about has been the therapeutic process, right, of learning, you know, singing technique, or of teaming up with someone to make a recording. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's my language. See, that's the thing is, you know, I am, let's say, emotionally intelligent. So my language is really talking about feelings and communicating that. In a lot of ways, like, I feel like that's my power. That's my ability, is to kind of like, the exchange of energy that I have with an audience is incredible. And I have felt it, and I know that they have felt it too. And there's this amazing thing that happens. And a lot of times, like, I move my hands a lot when I sing, and a lot of times it just feels like I'm conjuring up things, you know, and like, and creating energy and throwing it to people, and then like accepting it back. That's what I do. And then I like to take that to someone who understands the technical side of everything and let them do that, because I know what I'm good at. And then having James as a partner is incredible, because he's so good at all of the things.
So if you're to, we were talking a second ago about people that are, you know, getting ready to make a record maybe for the first time. It sounds like part of your approach has been to find people that complement what you bring to the process, right?
And respect it. People who understand that what you do is important and don't demean, because like I said, I'm not an educated musician. I'm self-taught. So I'm still learning things all the time, but I have been performing for a really long time. So my experience is all in performance, and it's all in, you know, connecting with people. And what you just can't ever let yourself be surrounded by people who are patronizing or demean your abilities in any way. You need people who treat you with respect, and that you can work with, and you respect what they do. And there's gratitude and there's appreciation. I mean, that's the most important thing, is you got to pick the right team. And if it doesn't feel right, then get the hell out of there.
And you have to sometimes try a few times before you know what right feels like. That's been what I've learned in the studio too.
Yeah, I've learned that in the studio and in relationships. And, you know, yeah, it's everywhere. Like, you got to try it out. If it doesn't work, you know, keep trying other people, other things.
Right. Wow. So Celeigh, you said a few times that you're not a trained musician. I'm not a trained musician, and I would say maybe not most, but many of the people that I've been lucky enough to work with wouldn't call themselves trained musicians. But here you are doing this professionally, making records, part of a big team. How do you think that someone who's not a trained musician ended up here doing this?
Well, I mean, I did start singing on stage when I was 4. And that was actually my first solo performance. Like, my mother drew cues because I couldn't read yet for the song that I was going to sing. And I actually, surprisingly, was a little bit of a diva and demanded that the pastor's wife was the person who played piano for me, or else I wouldn't sing.
Wow.
So I feel like it's something that I've been doing for so long. And I actually feel like I've always sang. And it's just, that's the thing that I love to do. There were other things that I was sort of interested in, like social work or anything where I was like helping people. But then at some point I decided, okay, the healthiest thing for you to do would be to pursue a career in the arts. Because if I were to do jobs like being a social worker, that's actually, I would probably bring home a lot of baggage with that. And I feel like through music, I am able to do stuff that does give out, the energy that does help people in a couple different ways. Because I come from a religious background and I grew up singing in the church, a big part of singing for me is like the emotional connection and like the healing power of music, and how it's really important, and also like, and worship and like joy. So for me, like music and singing is really about expressing those things and sharing that with other people. And because of that, I am able to connect with people that way, but also as an Indigenous artist. I grew up never feeling good enough. I grew up in a totally white community. My family and one other family were the only Native people in the entire school that I went to. So I've spent a lot of my time assimilating and looking at magazines and loving singing, but never seeing anybody that looked like me in any of the media. So I was never white enough. I had blue contacts for a while. I bleached my hair blonde, which did look terrible, very terrible. And I, never felt thin enough and was just never happy with myself. And as I've gotten older and I've kind of become stronger and more able to kind of reclaim my Indigenous heritage, because I didn't grow up with that either. I've learned how important it is for someone like me to have success and to advance, in Canada, and be the representation that I never had growing up. So in a lot of ways, as my path has kind of gone along through the years, I've just found more and more reasons for me to continue doing what I'm doing. And I'm constantly inspired by the Indigenous youth of today, because they are bold in a way that I have never known, and wish that I could be as bold as they are even now. And just watching that it's really inspiring and it's exciting to me. And so it's so embedded into who I am, into how I express myself, and into my own healing and my own therapy. And it's something that's just made me feel stronger and connected me with people. And now, actually, it's put me in a place where I work at CKUA, and I have a show on there called Full Circle, which is a show that I was actually given an hour, and the content director at the time said, "You can do whatever you want." And I said, "Well, I'm going to do an all Indigenous show, and I'm going to have it so eclectic that when people are listening, they're not going to assume that this is the Native Hour on CKUA, because there is so much versatility, and there's like Indigenous people. It turns out we can do anything, and we play folk music. We play so much more than just like traditional powwow music, which is what people tend to just affiliate with.
Indigenous isn't a music genre, is it?
That's right.
Yeah.
It is not a genre. Yeah. There are Indigenous artists playing all kinds of music. So that's given me an opportunity to highlight and to showcase incredible Indigenous artists from all over the world for 1 hour a week. And I mean, that also has inspired me to continue doing what I'm doing, because I get to hear great music all the time. And I have this platform now because of my musical career that I can use to help other people. So I get to help people the way that I always wanted to, but I'm doing it through music.
And even though you haven't been trained as a musician, you came to it with some ideas and some intuition pretty early at the age of 4. And now, having started vocal lessons for the first time, it's not too late to get that training, is it? And it'll just take you to somewhere a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year, and I just won, as I've been saying, my first JUNO. I think it's really important. Like, representation matters in every single way. And as I get older, I can't wait to be on stage and be talking about how I'm 50 years old, and just embrace age, embrace culture, just like get stronger as a person. And for me, it was really, I got to this place because I have a really entrepreneurial spirit, and I'm just constantly trying to find ways to make money, have passive income. And because I come from not a lot, I'm okay with not having a lot. So that's put me in a position of being comfortable living in, artist poverty. I'm okay with that because it's not an uncomfortable place for me. So I can continue to work on music and not be so worried about how, having $10,000 of credit card debt or whatever. That's not going to not going to destabilize me in a way that makes me not able to continue doing what I'm doing. I just constantly push. I performed, like, there was one year that I think I did like 300 gigs or something like that. Like, I just worked my ass off. Yeah. And it's just really, like, I put in a lot of work. I have a lot of determination. My family is behind me. And my son, who is 17 now, is, he's on board, and he just wants me to get rich so that he can have all the Xboxes. Wow. And yeah, so he's behind me all the way, and I really want to pursue my dreams because I want him to see you can do whatever the hell you want, so just do it.
All right. Wow. Celeigh, thanks so much for being at the NMC today. Thanks for a great day in the studio.
Thank you for a great day in the studio. It's been so lovely, and I super appreciate it. I'm so excited to hear the song.
Me too. Well, that's kind of a fun part of the process now, right? Is like we've thrown a lot of paint on the canvas, and there's a little bit more work to do to refine, and James will do some things, and you guys will be talking, but it's like, in a way, we've done 80% of the work today, but the next 20%, still big steps are going to be taken, right?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Cool. Thanks, Celeigh.
Thank you.
Well, I got some habits that I ain't quit. And I got some awful, dirty, nasty, evil tricks. Well, I got piles of trash, got layers and layers of scars. Got a lot of junk to get through to get to this jaded old heart. But you blew in like a warm breeze in the spring. You shake off the dust, bring a grief back to everything. There ain't no way I'm gonna let you go, baby, baby. There ain't no way I'm gonna let this slip away. There ain't no way I'm gonna let you go, baby, baby. There ain't no way I'm gonna let this slip away. There are places, real dark places that I will hide. And I got poisons, oh, so many poisons to ease my mind. And I'll drift away even when you're holding me tight. Oh, I got a lot of repairing left to do to make everything alright. But there ain't no way I'm gonna let you go, baby, baby. There ain't no way I'm gonna let this slip away. There ain't no way I'm gonna let you go, baby, baby. There ain't no way that I'm gonna let this slip away. let you go, baby, baby. There ain't no way I'm gonna let this slip away.